All right. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So you guys are a ways into Don Quixote now. So what I wanted to do first is yesterday you needed to watch the first video of Don Quixote. So Senora Schaeber students and my students are probably both coming to my webpage at this point. So if you look over in the side column, you should be, because today we had to read 6 and 7. Yeah, Sophie, so yes, because I had assigned my students 5 and 6 on Friday, and then in order to get back on track, she assigned you guys 6 and 7 today. So yes, you are slightly off by just a chapter, but after today, both classes are going to be on the same schedule. So yes. But yesterday, you guys all had the same assignment. So you needed to watch the video. So here, this is an animated series from, and I don't know if you read all this at the top, but it's from, de nada. This is from 1979, so it is kind of old, but I think it does a good job at explaining to you or showing you what's really happening in the story. So if you're having trouble understanding it as you're reading it, hopefully you're finding that this is clarifying for you a little bit. Hola, Jacobo. So I wanted to talk through this, and I think what I'm going to do, I did go through for my students, and I read your summaries. So most of us understand at this point what's going on, right? So we have this guy. I'm just going to kind of not play it, but going to talk through parts of it. So we have this guy. His name is Don Quixote, and that's actually something I want to talk about. Don does not mean Don, like the name. It's not like his name is Donald, right? His name, or the word Don is like used to show respect. So in Spanish, in Spain, in schools, the students don't call their teachers like Miss Picente, Mrs. Schaeber. They would say Doña Andrea, which is my first name. So the don for a man and the doña for a woman is just like a term of respect. So don does not mean Don, because some of you, when you're writing your summaries, I laughed a little bit myself, but it's completely understandable, right? We haven't taught that yet, that don is not a name. It is a term of respect that they put in front of their first name to show like that you respect that person. Instead of saying like Ms. Picente, Mrs. Schaeber, you would say Doña Andrea, Doña Sara, or Sarita. So we have this guy, he's calling himself Don Quixote. He reads and reads and reads these books about knights in shining armor, right? Hola, those of you who are just joining, thanks for being here. And he gets so caught up in the stories that he decides that he himself is going to turn into an errant knight, which means an adventuring knight, right? So we see he imagines all of these things. So he decides to go into his attic. He gets his old suit of armor. We have his horse. And what is his horse's name? Who can tell me what his horse's name is here? See if we remember some parts of what's going on. What does his horse go by? There you go, Dulce. Nice job. His horse's name is Rocinante. So, muy bien, Santiago. So he takes his horse and he begins his adventure. So, again, I'm just kind of skipping ahead here. He goes, he leaves his poor dog behind too, which is kind of sad. But he goes on his adventure. It's very hot. He's looking for a place to stay. When this pops up, let's see. This guy, do you know who this is supposed to be? Because this is not Don Quixote here. This in the video is somebody else. it's the voice of the narrator, but do you understand who this is? Like, who is narrating this story? It kind of looks like Shakespeare, right? But who wrote this story? Who is the author of Don Quixote? Again, it's all from the same time period as Shakespeare, which is why it looks like this, like the medieval times. But does anybody remember who the author of this is? Who is the author of Don Quixote? I'll give you a hint. Can you see it? Miguel de Cervantes. Yes, Miguel de Cervantes is the author. So Cervantes is a famous author, and his most famous work is Don Quixote de la Mancha. So when we see this guy, no, it's not Shakespeare. It is Cervantes, and he will pop in from time to time. He is like narrating the story as he's sort of like writing it here. All right, so Don Quixote and Rocinante, they're in the desert. They happen upon this inn, and what do they think what does Don Quixote believe the inn actually is? What does he see it as? He thinks that the inn is what? Yeah, a castle, right? He's imagining that this is a castle, and the innkeeper, right, Sabrina, is the king of this castle. So he asks for a place to stay. They're all kind of laughing at him because they think he's crazy, right? And they feed him this food, which Senora Schaeber talked about this stuff with you when she went over the chapters from on Thursday when she did her live. So basically what happens, right, is that he has to guard, he's essentially like guarding the castle, which is the inn, at night, right? They have him stay outside here. And what happens? He's outside guarding, and who comes up to the well at night? Do you guys remember from watching this? Who comes up to the well at night while Don Quixote is guarding watch? Yes, bien, Dulce. You are all over the story. A muleteer is how it's defined in your story, but a guy who's taking care of his mule, right? And all this poor guy is trying to do, he is just trying to get water for his mule, but Don Quixote tells him, don't touch my armor. And what he essentially does is he attacks the muleteer. Other people who are staying at the inn come to help the muleteer, and they throw rocks at Don Quixote. They attack him. And essentially how it ends is the innkeeper comes and tells them that to stop because Don Quixote is just a poor, crazy guy, right? And then that is where that video ends. Does that make sense, guys? Chapters 1 through 4. Did you kind of understand this video and the story more as you were watching this? Hopefully our intention now is to incorporate these videos, like break up the reading with the videos so that it helps you understand the story a little bit better. Can you give us a thumbs up if you're good with this, if you feel like you're understanding the story? If you're not, give me a thumbs down. All right. Good. All right, muy bien. So, then tonight or today for homework. Okay, great, guys. That's what I like to see. So for tonight's homework, if you're one of Senora Schaeber students, you have episodes 6 and 7 to do today, so that my students and her students are caught up. If you are one of my students, you've already submitted chapter 6 or episode 6, so you are going to read episode 7. And this today is reading, so you will be answering your questions in your Google Doc and sharing that with your teacher, or it should be already shared at this point. Okay, make sure also, I'm going to go through between probably tomorrow and Thursday and leave some comments back in your questions. I've checked them in now at this point for credit, but make sure you're answering in complete sentences, right? And pay careful attention to the verb tenses and things you're using too, because obviously the majority of these questions are phrased in preterite and imperfect because it's talking about what happened in the story. So make sure that you're thinking about that as well, right? Because this is not just comprehending what's going on in the story, but we want to be mindful of the grammar and the verb tenses that we're using as well. So you're going to do that today. You should read through chapter 7, episode 7, both classes, my class and Srta Schaeber's class. And then tomorrow, you're going to watch the next video, which some of my students already did based on the summaries that I got, which is fine. But for this next video, you do not need to submit a summary, okay? You're just watching it and enjoying it and just trying to get a sense of what's going on. So this video, let's see how long this one is. It is about 20 minutes, okay? So make sure that you do that for Wednesday, and then on Thursday, when Srta Schaeber does her live, she will recap what happened in episodes 5 through 7, that video, and we'll also go over the answers to episode 7 with you. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go over your answers to chapters 5 and 6 for my students. So let's see. Okay. All right. This is episodio 5. Let me zoom that out a little bit. All right. So it says, número 1, al ver tanto problema, que se decidió el ventero. So the ventero, again, is the innkeeper, the guy who Don Quixote thinks is the king. So what did he do upon seeing this problem that occurred at the well with the with Don Quixote and the muleteer? He, in order to avoid more violence, para evitar más violencia, armó caballero andante a Don Quixote. So he knighted him, essentially, right? Which was fake. He was reading out of like some random book. But again, everything that is happening, Don Quixote is viewing not as what's actually happening in reality, right? So he really does believe, Don Quixote, that he is being knighted. So then number 2 is a personal question. It asks, ¿Qué haría usted en esa situación? What would you have done in that situation? Do you think that you would have also knighted Don Quixote in order to kind of like get this guy out of your hair, this crazy person? And then número 3, ¿Qué hizo Don Quixote al despuntar el alba? This expression here means... it means, what did Don Quixote do at the break of dawn? You guys learned in Spanish 3 a word for dawn. Does anybody remember it? It was in the camping unit that we did and saw that word. Can anybody remember what that word is? Hola, Señora Funk. ¿Cómo estás? I bet Señora Funk knows what the word for dawn is. Any of my level 4 students remember? Nobody? All right, it's al amanecer. Do you guys remember that? You had anochecer, which was dusk, and amanecer, which was dawn. So that's another way to say dawn. But what did he do at the break of dawn? Salió muy contento de verse armado caballero. So he left very happy because he had been knighted. And then, ¿para qué regresarán a su aldea, Don Quixote and Rocinante? So for what did they return to their village? The word aldea is another word for village. Why did they return, Don Quixote and Rocinante? They went, regresarán, they will return para conseguir a Sancho Panza como escudero. So that's something I wanted to bring up. That the word escudero, it means squire, So I looked up and I wanted to show you a squire. Starting in the Middle Ages, a squire was the shield or armor bearer of a knight. Use of the term evolved over time. Initially, a squire was a knight's apprentice. So essentially, Sancho Panza is Don Quixote's helper, right? And he is now going to accompany Don Quixote on all of his future adventures. That's who Sancho Panza is. And when they're using the word escudero, that is what it means. It is a squire. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my questions. Let's see. All right, so, oh, we did all this. Okay, so I'm going to go on to 6. And now I know, Sr. Schaeber students, you have this due today, so I'm kind of helping you out a little bit here, but you'll get a head start. So Juan Faldudo. Can anybody tell me who this Juan Faldudo guy is that they happen upon when they are leaving the inn and they're continuing on their adventure? They come upon Juan Faldudo. Who is he? Does anybody remember? If you watched the second video, this is the next part of what is happening here. They're in the woods. They come upon this guy, Juan Faldudo. He's like a farmer, essentially, right? So what is he doing? What was he doing? He was whipping a Andrés, su criado. So he was like whipping his servant who had disobeyed him. Again, remember the context of this. This was written in the 1600s. So this is medieval times, right? Which is what is going on here. So Juan Faldudo, he was whipping Andrés, which is the name of the servant. So then Don Quixote, being the knight in shining armor, tries to come to his rescue. And he says, it says, ¿Qué hizo Don Quixote? What did he do? He liberó a Andrés. What do we think that means? Don Quixote liberó. Think like libertad, libre. What do those words mean? What did he do for Andrés? Anybody? Yeah, bien, Vanessa, thank you. Right, bien, Santiago. So he freed him, right? Or he was saying he was going to free him. And then the next question is personal response. It says, ¿Cree usted que Don Quixote liberó en realidad a Andrés? Right, Angelica, that is where it's coming from, right? Liberated him. If you're liberated, you're freed. So do you believe that Don Quixote actually freed him? This is your own answer, but we kind of later find out, right, that not really. Number 4 was also a personal response. It says, ¿Qué habría hecho usted? Which means, what would you have done in that situation? So, meaning, if you were Juan Faldudo, what would you have done? Would you have freed Andrés, or would you have continued like he does? And then, ¿Qué hizo entonces Faldudo? What did Faldudo do? He continued to whip Andrés con mayor furia, so like even worse than before, with more fury, greater fury. And then the last question here, ¿Cree usted que Don Quixote dejó las cosas mejor o peor? Do you believe that Don Quixote left things better or worse in that situation? And obviously we know by the end of that he makes things worse. Okay, so you will see both of these stories, the story with Juan Faldudo and also Don Quixote going to get Sancho Panza, in the video that you are watching for Wednesday, right? It's episodes 5 through 7. So in that video, you will see the story with Juan Faldudo. You will see him go get Sancho Panza, and then also the story from episode 7. Now, the last thing I wanted to do is you guys had a Google form quiz to complete for Friday, and I just wanted to go over these answers with you. So again, if you are a student who is taking this course for SUNY Oswego credit, your responses on these quizzes and like on this Friday you have a summary due, those are being recorded as grades. If you're not taking this course for SUNY credit, then you will just, I am marking down whether it is completed or not, but you will not get a formal grade in School Tool. However, if you are taking it for SUNY credit, then yes, you are getting a formal grade in School Tool. So I am going to show you, these are the charts from my students, not all students, but I just wanted to go through this together. So for número uno, this one was false. It says Don Quixote era de Madrid en España. He is not from Madrid. Where is he from? ¿De dónde es Don Quixote? ¿Quién puede decirme? Where is he from? It is in his name and the title of our story here. Don Quixote de La Mancha, Margarita. Thank you. Yes, muy bien. So, La Mancha is a place in Spain. Bien, Angelica, you got it too. All right, number two. Después de leer muchos libros de caballerías, many books about knights in shining armor, Don Quixote decidió hacerse caballero andante. He decides to become a knight himself. And yes, that is true. Número 3, el caballo de Don Quixote se llamó Rocinante. His horse is called Rocinante. Yes, we also know that is true, right? Based on, you guys told me that. All right. 4, Dulcinea era una dama muy rica y por eso Don Quixote quería enamorarse de ella. So, Don Quixote does want to fall in love with Dulcinea. This is who he's trying to impress through his adventures throughout the entire story. But was Dulcinea rich? No, right? What does the story tell us that she is? It says she was not a dama. It says she was, right, Juliana. What does the book refer to Dulcinea as? Or what class is Dulcinea part of? Can you guys tell me either in English or Spanish? Yes, bien, Angelica. Nice job. She was a labradora. Right, so she is in the working class. So she is not rich, which is, not typical of a damsel who a knight would be pursuing, but she is just a worker. She is not rich. Okay, Don Quixote creyó que la venta era un castillo. Yes, this is true. In this sentence, what does la venta mean? He believed that what was a castle? What is a venta? Bien, Juliana y Angelica. Yes, good job, chicas. It is the inn. So la venta, and then we have the ventero, which is the innkeeper. Bien, Lanessa. Nice job. Okay, so en la venta, Don Quixote tenía una cama cómoda en que podía dormir. No, that was false, right? He didn't even sleep that night. The innkeeper told him that he did not have a place for him to sleep. Número 7. Según Don Quijote, Rocinante era un caballo mejor que lo de Bucéfalo de Alejandro Magno. And this is correct. All my students got this right who took it. And Bucéfalo is the name of the horse of Alexander the Great, which was another famous story at this time. So he's saying that his own horse is better than Bucéfalo from Alexander the Great. All right, la capilla de la venta no estaba fenomenal ni en buena forma. That was true, right? The innkeeper tells him that the chapel was run down and that he would it would not be a good place for him to pray. Número 9, según Don Quixote, el arriero, which is that word for muleteer, the guy who came to care for his mule, no debía tocar sus armas. He shouldn't touch his armor, which was true, right? Don Quixote warns him, don't touch my armor. And then he does, and so he attacks him. And then it says, durante la batalla. Now this one was a little confusing here. Durante la batalla, Don Quixote pidió ayuda del ventero. No, he does not ask for help from the ventero. He calls the ventero un follón, which is a coward, right? Because the ventero is telling everyone to leave him alone because he's crazy. But Don Quixote doesn't ask for help from him. Don Quixote is trying to defend himself against all of the other muleteers and people at the inn who have come out to attack him. All right, so that was the answers. Those were the answers to the Google Forms quiz from Friday. Again, I just wanted to kind of review that with you. So then quickly, just going back to my calendar as a recap, what do you need to do today? For my students, you need to read episode 7 and do your answers to episode 7. And then for Senior Schaeber students, you're doing chapters 6 and 7. And then tomorrow you will watch the second video. No summary for the video tomorrow, though. So you do not have a Google form to complete tomorrow. All right, thank you to everyone for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great day. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so take advantage of this nice weather today while you can. All right, everybody. Adios.